Hey team, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of the Lifestyle You podcast. It's your host, Lacey Iskra. And on today's episode, I have a very special guest joining me. I have Jaime B. Haas, who is the founder of the Jaime B. Haas Method, which is a guided process that draws from spirituality, positive psychology, mindfulness, and life experiences. And the method is meant to help individuals heal from intergenerational, societal, and emotional trauma, freeing them to reconnect with their personal power, gain clarity on what they really want to achieve in life, and dismantle any deep-seated beliefs holding them back from moving them forward. So I'm sure by just saying that, you understand why I invited Jaime on the podcast, and I'm super happy to have her here. So thanks for joining me, Jaime. How are you?
Hi, thanks so much for having me. I'm great.
Good. Awesome. Well, to kind of get things started, I'd love to hear about what inspired you to make such a method around that. I'm sure it has something to do with your story a little bit. So if you want to start with that.
Sure. Yeah, it's all about my story. It's all about my pain. So, I mean, pretty much the story starts at 40, because I had spent a lifetime in therapy. I'm actually sober. So at that time of 40, I was almost 10 years in program. And I had done like a lot of self-help books, yoga, psychics, healers. I was trying to find any way to like just get better and like make my dreams come true. And so, and I wanted to say like all of that did help. Like it helped, like my life got better. However, at 40, I still found myself 2 days before my 40th birthday ending another unhealthy, abusive relationship. I was in a job that I really didn't like with an abusive, unhealthy boss, and my friendships were unfulfilling. So I was like, wow, there's really something wrong here. And I was really at a point where it was like, the dark night of the soul, so to speak, because it was like either like I'm going to just leave the building, you know what I mean? Or like I'm going to find like what this is, because there is no way that this is it. There's no way. There's just no way. And I'm going to find like what this is and change my life. And so I took the latter choice. I was like, I'm going to find it. Like if anybody knows anything about me, that's how I roll. It's like, I'm going to find the solution. And so, a voice came in and was like, you have to go deeper. And I was like, what? Like, haven't I already gone deep enough? I was like, what does that even mean? And so I spent the next 2 years, like really like going and finding what that deeper means, right? And so with a concoction of other modalities and my own interpretation of things, as well as a lot of divine guidance, I created the solution, which was amazing. And so, my life started to really change from the inside. Like I was very different the way I was approaching myself and life. And then the outside started to really change. And so, as people, at 44, I got married for the first time. At 45, I got pregnant by surprise when they told me I would never get pregnant. And so, I'm 53 now. I have an 8-year-old healthy young boy. And then, I got the house of my dreams, and like all these outside things started coming in, and people kept asking me like, what did you do? And enough people were asking me because I realized that it wasn't a simple answer, actually. So I sat down one night and I literally wrote the workbook. I created a workbook with the solution, and within like a week, I had my first client.
Wow.
And I've been word of mouth alone for 7 years.
So
Like,
cool.
yeah. So like based on the outcome of what happens to my clients, people say, what did you do? Just like they asked me, and then they just start coming.
So do you find that you attract like a certain type of person? Because I imagine you have to be a certain type of person to be able to go deeper. Like, are you able to, does a person have to be like, I'm ready to go deep, I want to sign on? Or you're like, or can you convince them to go deeper, if that makes sense?
So good question. So I feel like in my experience now of 7 years, I don't want to convince anybody. I don't think that that's healthy. Like, because, it's very confronting, because I go back to, the work I do is really focused on your thinking and your behaviors, but not top line stuff that everybody else is doing. Like I am going in, like they're calling me the soul surgeon, because I'm going in and extracting layer by layer, deeper and deeper. I don't know what is going on inside. So it's like, from fears to limiting beliefs, then going back to mom and dad, like to your childhood, to find the programming, the core programming that has created you living in these patterns of thinking and behaviors that are like keeping you from your highest best self. So, and all your dreams. So I don't want to convince anybody. I don't believe in that. I feel that the people that come to me are ready for change.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not necessarily like, oh, they're like, oh, I want to go deeper, but they're like, I'm willing to do what it's going to take to change my life, because I can't live this way anymore.
Mm-hmm. And do you find it normal to be like they already tried all of the other things? Because I related to that so much when you're like, we did therapy and all the self-help books and everything, and you're still like, something's not right.
Well, that's my client, right? Because that was me. It was like, all the people I work with are like, I've done everything, you know what I mean? Like years of therapy and like self-help. And they've done like, I'm not going to name the other programs that they've done, but they've done a bunch of other programs. And like I said, although everything has helped, and it may have band-aided it or like gave you some relief. The issue is that there's no real permanent lasting change, because the issue is deeper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's all in our beliefs mainly. I noticed you mentioned like friendships and relationships.
Yes.
How do our beliefs and our behaviors shape how we show up in relationships, or do they?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. It's all about how we show up. It's all about, if we just basically talk quickly about manifesting, right? It's like, it's happening whether we believe it or not. So it's like manifesting, law of attraction, The Secret. It's all the same thing, ancient wisdom, whatever. It's all stating that, whatever we think about and focus on the most is what we're bringing back to us, is what we're creating and bringing back, right? Because our thoughts, our feelings, and our words are all an energy. So if we're sending that out, that energy is a magnet, and it magnetizes back to us all things that are aligned with that. So if I don't think I'm good enough, or if I think, I'm just giving you like a basic one of my clients, like if I don't think I'm good enough, then I'm going to bring back situations and people that keep making me feel that same way. So if it's like, I can't trust, women, or if I can't trust men, I'm just saying that could be in friendships. That was my thing. Definitely. I can't trust them. So I'm going to keep bringing back people that I don't feel safe with, so but that's great to know, but then you got to go deeper to find out what's going on in there. Like, that's what I do. I'm going in there to find that, but it relates completely to your relationships, because it begins. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, it doesn't, like when you say it, it's like, well, that doesn't make sense. Like if I don't trust people, I want to attract someone that I trust, but why, if we are in that state and giving out that energy of we don't trust anyone, why do we attract people? Like, why do we want to attract people, and why does that end up happening?
So let me unpack that. So if I'm afraid, I'm going to go deeper, the next layer deeper, right? If I don't trust people. So if I don't trust people, don't trust men, or if I don't trust women, or I just don't trust people, right? Underneath that is fear. Fear is a huge magnet, right? Because if you're sending that out, that's a very strong energy. And if we're sending that out, what's attracting that back to us is people that either prey on fear or in fear themselves. So then they're going to deal with you and life in their own coping mechanisms, is what I call it, right? And our coping mechanisms to deal with our fear are another way. So now we're caught in this, web of like trying to protect our fear and like feel safe. But the bottom line is that if we don't feel safe inside and we're coming at life in fear, then the fear is the strongest point of energy. That's what we're sending out. That's what we're going to bring back. Did that help?
Yeah, that helped. Because I guess in a way, and I've heard this before too, it's like sometimes we mistake safe for familiar, or what is familiar is safe. So if we're like, oh, we don't trust people, so we want to attract people to almost reassure us that we are right and that we are safe and that we don't trust people. So here's all these people that we don't trust, and we're like reaffirming our belief that people aren't trustworthy.
Well, exactly. That's exactly right. And this is where it gets really fascinating, right? So it's like what I do is first I got to find the coping mechanisms that are, you're doing as a result of this fear, this thought, whatever it is. But then we have to go underneath and find like, where did this start? Not to like, do therapy over it. What I do is, I just want to be clear, like, we're not sitting and talking and like slathering in the problem. I'm finding the problem so we can get to the solution. So it's like, where did that come from? Okay, came from mom because she did what, or she said some, or, from her own thing. And then I created this certain thinking, this story, we'll call it core story, core beliefs around like not feeling safe, either because it was your experience or it was something that was put upon you that you created as your own story, right? So like, if we don't find that and turn that around, as far as my professional experience is, you can do all the top line stuff, but that core wounding, core belief system, if core programming, if that is not dealt with, it is still driving the ship.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes sense.
Yeah.
And that's why it's like people will notice if you even think back, it's like, oh, you keep attracting the same type of partner or the same type of friendships and you don't know what's going on, and then you end it and then you go back into the same thing, and it's a cycle. And so it's understanding what the cycle is obviously step one, so that you can break it down.
Yes, and I can show you what you're doing. I can show you the entire pattern. Like, that's what I do. I am the pattern. I can show you the entire pattern, how you think and behave and play it out, and how the core, like, I don't trust people. I'm afraid, whatever it is. I can show you that in the end, every single thing you think and do is what takes you back to recreating that experience, so that you have to reaffirm that belief.
Go ahead. I was going to say, usually those beliefs come from like when we're really young.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And listen, I just want to be clear. It doesn't mean that you have to have severe trauma, severe wounding. It could just be pain, or it could just be something that someone said to you that you ran with it. Like, you took that and that is like your story. You know what I mean? I have some of that with my own self. Like, some story that my mother told me, I took and ran, and then I created my own pattern belief around it.
Well, and we're so young, it's like, it's not even what happened to us, but it's like how we interpreted it.
That's exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, it's so powerful, right? It's like, we have Joe Dispenza and all these amazing people that talk about your thinking and, whatever it is, because it's like, it's real. Like, it's like, that's the most powerful point, right? Is our thinking, because our thinking creates our behaviors, which creates our way of being.
Yeah, it's something that I want to mention, because something that I'm dealing with working through currently myself is people pleasing. And I've seen that mentioned in a lot of your work. So I just wanted to pick your brain a little bit about that. But what do you feel like is some of the reasons, I guess, that people struggle with people pleasing, and what can they do about it?
Sure. I love this topic.
Same.
All my clients are people pleasers. So it's, obviously, once again, it's back to your childhood, because it's like somewhere your needs didn't get met. Like, and you weren't heard or seen, and that you had to behave in a certain way, do a certain thing, not be seen in order to get the love, or, as I would say, the crumb of love, the crumb of validation, the crumb of attention, right? So it's like you knew that if you did or said something in a certain way, did a certain thing, did what they wanted, then you would be safe, you'd be okay, you get validation, or you get the love. Right?
Right.
I'm just asking to be
Yeah.
clear. Yes. Okay. Right. So usually, and I'm not going to just say it's blanket, but usually, your mother or your father, usually the mother, though, I have to be honest, is like not happy within self. Like, she's emotionally unavailable, she's controlling, she's narcissistic, like very unavailable, and just focused on herself. And so you have to fit yourself into that box, right? So it's like, if you just do a good thing, then you'll get the crumb of attention and love, or she'll leave you alone, or whatever it is. But the truth of the matter is that, as we always say, like, people pleasing, people never get pleased. So you have to keep pleasing, and then you're in an endless cycle of not fulfilling that. So, and in the end, you're never taken care of. That's the bigger problem. So it's like, they don't get pleased. You have to keep trying to figure out what you need to do to please them. And you totally negate yourself. Like, doesn't matter. You don't matter. And so it's a hard thing to sustain. But the real problem, and all those things are actually problems, but the bigger issue is that you're not being authentic or honest. And so what that does is it creates even more of a dichotomy of a problem, because you're like in a constant state of trying to figure it out. Who am I supposed to be? What do I need to do? How do I get the love? How do I get the validation? And so you are forever in a chase of leaving yourself and never being okay.
Yeah. Sad.
Well, it's kind of like an epidemic. I mean, it's like, it's a common problem. I have to be honest. It's a common issue. Yes.
Yeah. And I think what really was like eye-opening to me when it's really like a form of manipulation, people
Yes.
pleasers, because you're people pleasing them into liking you, and you don't think they're going to like you if you don't do this thing. So you do it even though you don't want to do it. And I was like, wow, when you put it like that.
Well, I say people pleasing is lying.
Yeah.
You're lying. Because you're just, right? You're manipulating, your lying. I like to put it as lying because it really like wakes you up. It's like, oh my God, it is. It's being totally dishonest. Right?
So what's kind of maybe like one or two simple tactical things if someone's like, yeah, I'm a people pleaser for sure. Like, is there ways or something that they can do to stop being a people pleaser so much? Or
I mean, there's a lot of things to do. In the root of people pleasing, it's because you don't love yourself. Like, you don't think you're okay yourself as you are. So I feel like, and it's the root of all problems, actually, is this lack of self-love and not feeling good enough. So, the work begins with that. Like, that's the first piece, is to really start to work on like loving yourself and being okay with yourself and feeling good with yourself, right? So that's one. There's multiple things you can do in that genre. And also, you have to start finding out, like, what's your truth? Like, what do you want? Most of my people pleasers don't even know what they want. They don't know what they like, because they've been so used to pleasing that, like, they're really unaware. So I feel like that's another thing, right? Start to find out, like, what do you like? Like, what makes you happy? What makes you feel good? What do you want? Because all of this is out the window when you're people pleasing, right? So and another thing is start being honest and authentic. Like, just start now, like setting boundaries, saying no. Like, that's a biggie. Saying no. No, 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 no. um, and offering, like, your wants and needs. Saying, okay, maybe I'd be willing to do that, but this is like, or this is how I feel, or this is how I see it, or this is what I want. How can we compromise? It's like, you're kind of in a dictatorship when you're people pleasing.
Yeah.
The other person's the dictator, by
Yeah.
the way. Okay. Right? So it's like, the healthiest relationships are about compromise and communication. And when you're in people pleasing, you're not doing either.
Yeah.
You're at a total default for the other person, right? So
yeah, it's interesting because I've kind of been unpacking my people pleasing for probably like 2, maybe 3 years now. And when I first started, like, okay, I'm going to start saying no. And it was funny because I had never said no my whole entire life. So I like didn't know how to do it. So someone would ask me like, oh, like, can you do this? I'd be like, no, like right away. Like it wasn't, I just like, because I couldn't beat around the bush. I couldn't like think of a nice way to say it. I just had to like say it right away or I wouldn't do it. And they're like, whoa. And I'm like, well, I didn't mean it like that. But like, no, I'm just not available or whatever. And just like, now I'm a little bit better at it. I know how to communicate it a little bit smoother, but yeah, It was just funny because they'd be like, whoa, okay, like you don't have to. And I'd be like, well, I just don't know how to say it yet. And I know if I don't say it right away.
yes.
So funny.
Because it's also how we say it, right? It's also 100%. How we say it. So we were never taught that, right? When we're little, it's just like, we didn't have a choice. So it's like growing up and learning how to communicate. I mean, communication is like a huge skill, right? I've learned it over time. How to say, like, that doesn't sound good to me. However, I'd be interested in blah, blah, blah. Or like, that's not something I can do right now. Or that's not something I want to do. Or say, I'd be willing to do that, but I need to do this first. Or so there's like many ways to do it. But the way we begin to do that is if we like feel value and worth within ourselves that we deserve, to be able to say what we need also, right?
Yeah. And yeah, for me, it was just like, okay, starting off with saying no to like little tiny things. And then it's like, okay, now you start to build some confidence. It's like, oh, all your friends don't automatically hate you now because you didn't want to go out to the bar one night or whatever. And then it's like, you get a little bit more affirmation, I guess, that it's okay to say no. So just start small if you're listening to this. Like you don't have to go out and say no to everything, but it's just taking the step one by one because people pleasing won't get you anything in the end, really.
Well, it won't, but it makes you feel worse about yourself and makes you believe that you're never going to get heard and seen, that your needs are never going to get met, and that you're not good enough. You're never going to get the love. So it's like, step 1, say no. Love yourself. Like take some actions to start to get to know who you are. Right? Because it's like, what did I want to say? I wanted to say one thing. It's like, if you don't start doing that, what happens is that like you'll be forever in unfulfilling relationships. You'll forever feel unfulfilled and you'll never have a choice. You'll never have a choice. But I do want to be clear, just FYI, it's like you got to go back and find where that came from. Like, where is that wounded piece of you that started that in the first place, right? Because that has to change. That has to change and heal also. To really good. Yeah.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I think even a big one for me is like, once you kind of understand why you're doing it, it is easier to change it because you know where it is coming from. And so you're like, okay, I know what that is. Like, that's little Lacey. That's what I call her.
Yeah.
Yeah. And So that's another reason. Yeah. Obviously getting to the stem of it is important, but it just helps understand. And then it's almost like for me, I was just not as hard on myself after I had realized where it came from. And I was like, it's not like I was frustrated at that point. It's like, I get it. I know what I'm doing. I know what's happening right now. I want to say yes to this person for this reason, but I'm going to say no.
Yes. I mean, it's a big deal. And like the last thing I just want to say on that note is that, you know, all that people pleasing never got you what you wanted anyway. So it's like, that's a big revelation. Like, oh my God, it doesn't work. Like, it's like, I don't get what I want. So, you know, I want to hit that home for all the listeners that are people pleasers. It's like, you know, it doesn't work. So like, love yourself, say no, find who you really are. You know what I mean? Because when you people please, you bring in people who want to be pleased, who aren't going to give you what you want and need, so that you're in that perpetual state. But the minute you start loving yourself, setting boundaries, and start finding out what you like and need and give yourself your needs, you start bringing in people that meet you where you're at that place. So you start having more fulfilling, like equal relationships. Like that's the exciting part.
Because it goes back to what you said earlier about just attracting what energy you're putting out. And I never even thought about it that way, but that is totally true. And then as you start to say no, then the people who were just with you to be pleased will start to go away because you're not pleasing them anymore. And then that gives you goosebumps. Makes so
That's
much
right. You know, I love to say my motto is, you know, your authenticity is your magnet and your protection. It brings in the people who are aligned, and it keeps out and chases away the people who are not. So it's like being authentically who you are is the best thing ever.
It is. It's scary at first.
It is. It totally is. But it's like, that's who you're meant to be anyway.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of that, when you're not living in your authentic self, it's based around like stories, I guess, that you're telling yourself based off your past experience, right? But do you talk about stories with your clients and stuff like that, or just
the stories are the patterns?
Yeah.
Like it's all kind of interweaved with each other, right? It's like the stories that you create are, you know, you have to unpack all of that because there are certain thinking and behaviors that you do based on those stories. So like, that's the problem. Like our positive stories and programming has gotten us what we want, and the negative ones are keeping you from what you want. So it's like, you've got to, like, I have found that you have to really dissect it to really like heal on a visceral level, because it's very crafty. It's very crafty how we like find all these like ways to like sabotage ourselves and like really hurt ourselves, like hate on ourselves, hurt ourselves, don't like ourselves, and take ourselves down. Yes, it makes me sad. But there's, yeah, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I was just going to say, when you say like dissect it, is it like the stories that we tell ourselves? Yeah.
That's what I do.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because where do they come from?
Well, once again, you know, it's like, you know, it's still an old thing, but from an old pain wound belief, whatever it is, the core programming. But then we take that and create our own story around it. That's the patterns, right? We create our own thinking and behaviors. Those are the stories, reacting to the stories we've created. So it's like all interweaved in the thinking and behaviors. Yeah. And then that's how we go about our way of being.
And then again, this makes all so much sense, because you want to prove your story right. So you attract scenarios that will prove that story right. And then you continue to live in that pattern, and then your story even gets stronger, and there's more validity behind it because you've proven it right 100 times. And then it's It's a never-ending freaking cycle.
Well, and even if that's not what you want to create, because most of my clients, including myself, that isn't what I wanted proof on. I didn't want the proof on it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But because I believed it so strongly, it was so powerful. I call it like this. I was committed to the story. I was committed to the belief, like really committed. Then I kept bringing back those people and situations to reaffirm my commitment to the belief. Right? Yeah.
And that's where like self-sabotage comes in, because I'm like a lifestyle coach. So we help a lot of women change their lifestyle, and losing weight is a part of it normally. And so it's interesting when you see the self-sabotaging come in, because their belief is that they are overweight, or that they don't know what to do, or that they just can't lose weight, and so they will self-sabotage, whether that is overeating, undereating, not doing your daily habits, because they want to reaffirm that their story is right, because we don't want to be wrong. We don't want to be in the unfamiliar. That's scary. We don't know. So yeah, self-sabotage gets everyone.
Well, and once again, what's underneath that? What's underneath it, right? What did mom say? Dad said, "Oh, you're fat. You're never going to get any guys." I mean, like, it could have just been that. Or like mom was like, don't eat that. You're going to get fat. You know what I mean? It's like underneath that is all the stuff.
Yeah.
It's really, fascinating. It's said that our soul is a recorder of all memories, right? Good and bad. But for some reason, we as humans tend to connect more to the negative. And it like really drives the ship. Like it's the motivator and creator of so much of our issues. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because don't we have like way more negative thoughts on a daily basis than positive thoughts? Yeah. That is
interesting. And P.S. negative thoughts are affirmations. They're negative affirmations. So you're programming yourself to create a way of being in this negative thought process, right? Yeah.
Yeah. What a journey. Yeah, I think I read that somewhere. It's like 80% of our thoughts that we have are negative. I don't know if that's right though. Don't quote me on that, but that's crazy. But by the sounds of it, there's just always one layer deeper that you can go. So keep trying to ask yourself that. And I think like a big question, I guess, is like, what advice would you give someone to be like, okay, like I'm trying to figure out who I am, like what's something that I can, like what's even a small thing that you can do to start to figure that out, because that's such a loaded question. Like who are you, who am I?
Okay, so it's loaded. Okay, so I'm giving the plug now just because I think it'll help with what you're asking.
Okay.
So it's like on my website I have a free download. It's the 5 habits, but it's and there it's actually the actions to self-love. It's like I have found that I feel like self-love is one of the ways to start to get to what you're talking about, finding out who you are, because all of us struggle with lack of self-love. It's the root of all of our problems, right? That's what I've found. And I have found that, it's a very esoteric thing. Oh, just love yourself. So me being me, I wanted to find out, like, how do I do that? Like, what are the tangible actions that I can take to do that? Because I'm an action-oriented person. So if you can go and download that and start doing that, that's one thing that starts to help get you to start to connect to yourself, come back inward to yourself, right? Because all of life, and we are programmed to like focus on the outside, but like the outside isn't going to give you the solution for the inside. It doesn't fix the inside. So working on that, and then like really finding your joy. Like, what are the things that light you up? Like, what makes your soul sing? Like, it could be as basic, like, as eating like mint chip ice cream. That's my favorite. With Jimmy's, I know we're on a health thing, but anyway, I'm just saying. Or like, dancing or like painting. It's like finding certain things that bring you joy, like what lights you up, starts to lead you on a path, because more and more on tapping into that starts to open other doors for you because it frees you. You're more in a state of wonder and joy and happiness, and and love, and that's a higher vibration place to be, which starts to bring in other opportunities and possibilities, or also opens your mind up to possibility. Right. So I always find like finding your joy, finding things that bring you joy. It doesn't mean you have to earn at that or whatever it is. It's like just what brings you joy. Right. Because the more we can get in that place, we're in a higher point of like finding who we are. Right. Doing the things you love. And I feel like learning how to be authentic and honest also helps you find who you really are. Because and then I always have my clients like write a list of their accomplishments. Like, even if it doesn't even have to be like I achieved this or that, but it's like, the different things let you see like who you are. Like, it's really getting to know who you are and spending time with yourself. Spending time with self. I know that that's everybody's least favorite thing to do, but the more you get to know you, the more you get to love yourself, the more you find your joy. It's like the inside starts just building up, and it's like it takes you to places that you couldn't have imagined before.
Yeah. Well, and even just if you can find something that brings you joy, doing that constantly is going to elevate your energy. Then you're going to attract more things that bring you joy, and it's all part of the plan. But you got to actually try different things. That was like a huge thing for me when I started. That was like, okay, I'm trying this, I'm signing up for this class, I'm signing up for this class. And some things I did once and I never went back, and some things I still do every day to the day. So I think that is like, you're not going to just wake up one day and like know something that brings you joy. Like, you have to put yourself out there.
Yes.
And try
yes
things.
Yes. But I just want to be clear. If we don't work on the self-love factor, then we're still going to start to turn that the outside's going to fix the inside. Like, you've got to spend time with yourself and learn to like yourself, like enjoy who you are, get to know who you are. So that, because it's a holistic thing, right? It's like, they say meditating, and I mean, there's a lot of elements to that, but it's all focused on like going inward, connecting with yourself, connecting with the universe or God, whatever you want to say, and getting to know who you are and doing the things that bring you joy and loving yourself. Like, that is really the magic sauce.
Well, and even just like allowing or accepting that you are worth that time where you are going to spend by yourself and go to do things, like that's part of falling in love with yourself, is like, I am worthy of this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to take the time. So yeah, it's all connected. A real big thing that helped me, and we talk about it all the time on the podcast, is journaling. Like, I journaled every day for 4 years straight, I think. And through that, I was like, I'm complaining about the same thing. This is my pattern. I see it. It's clear. It's been, and then it still took me years to actually change the pattern and get out of it. But you get sick of writing about it. You know what I mean? It's like, I can't write about this thing one more time without changing it. And so that was something that really, I feel like, helped me and helped me understand where I was stuck and how to kind of get through it. But yeah, I love that.
Well, journaling's number one on the list of 5 habits, except for I tell my clients, I don't want you to write your life story. I only want you writing your negative thoughts, your anxieties, and your fears, because we got to start to get them out. Because when you wake up, how you start your day is how you create your day, right? So these 5 habits are how you start your day. It's like, if you're waking up with fear, negative thoughts, and anxieties, and we're talking about manifesting, and your energy and your thoughts and words all have the power. If that's what you're sending out, then that's what you're bringing back into the day. So, like, to start the day off by getting rid of that, and then, and then I have you getting quiet and then read some affirmations on something that you'd rather have, create or be, do or have, then now you're directing the day. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, it's really important journaling. It's like, because once again, as we even started half the conversation here, it's about your thinking, right? So if you're like stuck in all this stuff, that's what you're calling in to your life.
Yeah. And I think most of us probably don't even realize it because there's so many distractions in today's world that we don't even really know what's going on up there, because we just, we're having a negative thought, pick up our phone, having a negative thought, eat something, have a negative thought, watch TV, change the thought, change the thought. But that was, for journaling. I was like, oh my gosh, I got a lot to pack here. Like,
yes.
And it almost took me a while to like gain that trust and confidence. Like, it took me a while to be able to go deep. Like, at first it was like, I'm kind of tired right now. Like, and it would take me. And then after a while, you kind of begin to trust yourself and you get deeper and deeper and deeper. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, this is, who am I?
Yes. Well, when I tell them negative thoughts, fears, and anxieties, they're all like, oh yeah, okay, that's easy, right? Because it's all there. It's all just there.
Yeah, it is. So
like, just get it out.
Just get it out. Don't read what you think someone might want to read one day. Read what you're actually thinking.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Well, I feel like we can wrap it up there. I don't want to take too much of your time, but I know you're writing a book right now.
Yes, I have a book at some publishers right now. Mm-hmm.
Ooh, well, if you want to tell us a little bit about that, or just anything where they can find you, I'm for sure going to refer a couple of my clients for sure to your checklist. So I'm excited for that. And we can put anything in the show notes, you guys, so it'll be there for you if you need it. But
okay. So, well, the book is more about the self-love stuff that we've been talking about, self-love and connection, because that's actually, but once again, as I said to you, I'm all about solution and practical actions, like my method and my workbook. It's all about practical actions and solutions. So it's more about that, on how we do that, how you get that. And I figured a fast, easy read to give you a quick solution so you can start doing it now, because that is the root of our problem. So it's going to be the root of the solution. So there you go with that. And so I have those 5 habits on my website, and sign up, because I'm going to be coming up with some online courses soon, TBD, next year, 2023. And so if you get on my email list, you will be accessible to the online courses, which will be great. And any of my other stuff that you might be interested in. So my website is jaimebhaas.com, but my name is spelled JAIMEBHAAS. So jaimebhaas.com. And then all of my other social media is just jaimebhaas.com. So that's Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And everything I put out is based on solution and help.
Yeah, because you can read as many books. You can see my collection here. But it is the tactical stuff that's going to make the difference at the end of the day. And you do have to do the work if you want to change your life. So love that you're taking that approach, because I fell victim to that. I'll just read 800 books and I'm sure my life will change, and then it doesn't.
No, right?
So got to do the work, but
I'm all about the action.
Yeah. So super grateful for having you on today, and can definitely see how you're in alignment with the podcast. So that's great. Super happy to have you here. And like I said, you guys, we will have everything in the show notes there. So give her a follow on Instagram, support her. And thanks a lot for joining me today. And I'll talk to you guys next week.
Thank you so much for having me.